Hey there, this is Manjunath for Data Science Galaxy. Oftentimes, many people have reached out to me discussing regarding the data science interview process. As part of the interactions, I get asked multiple questions regarding the interview process itself. Just to give you a glimpse of what those questions are, I'm going to talk more than a couple of questions for your visibility. First and foremost, I get asked is this: what is the employer looking for in the data science interview process? The second question I get asked frequently is this: what is the evaluation process look like? Can you help us get a sense? The third question I get asked, for this I need to give you a little bit of background. Those who reach out to me from time to time would also have, some of them at least, software development background also. Therefore, they want to know how different the data science interview process, if at all, from the software development interview process itself. The fourth question I get asked are by those profiles are the people who do not necessarily have any data science background and therefore are keen to know this even more for making the transition into dream roles. Either way, I get asked these questions by several people from time to time. And some of them reached out to me telling this: you know what, Manjunath, I just thought I prepared for the interview well and answered the questions also in the interview, and I thought I left a lasting impression on the interviewer, but the feedback is to the contrary. Wonder what went wrong. If these are some of the questions that are top of your mind and you're looking for answers to crack that interview for your dream role in data science, my friends, I request you to watch this video till the end for maximum information. Hope this is exciting for you and me to together dive into. I alluded to data science interview framework. I think it's time to deep dive into the framework for better understanding. Let's do it together, friends. I've created this framework which is based on 5 steps to tackle any interview question or any problems asked in the data science interviews. So these 5 steps are very, very important. So you may be wondering why these 5 steps. So natural to ask that question, right? What is the basis for these 5 steps? So let's just spend some time understanding what is this 5 steps framework and why this 5 steps framework itself. So let me just elaborate on a few points as to how did I arrive at these 5 steps. I've used my personal experience. I've used the experience of being an empaneled interviewer for evaluating the data science professionals. And I've also used from time to time the learning on the ground and the experience from the ground to be able to incorporate the tips and tricks and what works best in certain situations and what you should resist. So therefore, this is the culmination of the 5 steps as a framework for you to be able to go to for leveraging at all times when you attend data science interviews. So let's continue with the discussion. As I already mentioned more than once, data science interview process is very different from software development interview process. Please take note. In the interviews, what does the employer look for is not an exacting solution, let's just say, for the data science interview question. In fact, they're looking for your structured thinking, systematic approach that you see it on this slide, and of course, your ability to solve a problem and getting directionally certain things right. What I mean by that is this: you should be able to ask pertinent questions and therefore seek answers or clarifications for the question asked in the interviews, and therefore think through in your minds structured and systematic approach to problem solving. You are not going to be evaluated critically for exacting solution. And therefore, what you should not do in a data science interview is exactly the point that you see it on the slide. Instant solution in a premature fashion should be avoided. What I mean by that is, many of us would think the moment the question is asked in the interview, we think we understood the question in its entirety and want to impress the interviewer. In our eagerness to impress the interviewer, we may be able to give answers spontaneously. But you know what? You should resist the temptation to give instant response or an instant solution to your problem in a premature fashion. Why? Remember what employer is looking for. It's a structured and systematic approach. It is problem-solving mindset. It is the ability to ask questions to understand the problem even more and things of that nature. Your instant response may not have factored in its entirety, holistically speaking, and therefore you could fall short of meeting the expectations. That is, therefore, I reiterate, resist the temptation to provide instant solution in a premature fashion. You'll also see why I make this strong statement, and I certainly tell you I'm going to support my statement with the facts based out of what I've drawn out in the slides. So now, continuing with the data science frameworks, here we go. This is the revealing moment for the framework. It is a 5-step framework. First and foremost is the context. Second is the difficulty level. Third is the divide and conquer. Fourth is the problem solving. Fifth step is the communication. And I'm going to spend significant time deep diving into each of those steps. It's important that you continue watching this video till the end for maximum information. Don't miss out on that. So friends, let us spend time on understanding each of the steps in the interview process framework that I created. It's very, very important to get clarity on each of the steps for you to be able to make maximum impact in the interview. So the first step that I called out, context. Understanding the context should also include here, with respect to the interview process, the expectations and the evaluation process itself. Let me repeat. Understand what is being evaluated critically well. If need be, do not hesitate. Please do not hesitate to ask questions and seek clarity. Not just clarity on the evaluation process, but the clarity with respect to the problem that was asked of you in the interview. Very, very important as part of the context you need to understand. So let me summarize context quickly. Understanding the context for the problem that was asked or the use case that was asked, and more importantly, clarity on the evaluation process if you have any doubts. Very, very key, because that's going to drive the rest of the interview process for you. After having understood the context and therefore the evaluation process, second is gauging the difficulty level. That's an important step in the framework. I would strongly recommend the urge to take a big bang approach to problem solving. And therefore, remember, I stated and made a strong statement at that. Resist the temptation to provide instant solution in a premature fashion. Why? Who knows? You wouldn't have gauged the difficulty level by not seeking clarity in the problem and not having clarity in the expectations and the evaluation process itself. So don't take a big bang approach to solving the problem. So before you gauge the difficulty level. So let's just understand what is this gauging difficulty level here as a second step. See, some problems that you think would be very simple to answer, some could be not so simple. Let's just say they're complex. Some are, let us say again, fairly complex. Some are really complex, or really hard, isn't it? So the approach that you take for problem solving is way too different, strategically speaking, for the ones that is simple and the ones that are way too complex. Nevertheless, you have to strategize as to how you systematically approach each of those problems. So gauging the difficulty level to that extent is very critical in the evaluation process framework. Let's say you get a sense of the project to be complex. Now, you're not going to take the big bang approach. So what is the alternative? So it's natural to think you're going to divide and conquer. So what I mean by divide and conquer? Remember friends, it's always a great idea to break the problem into multiple manageable chunks. Hope that makes sense. When you break a problem that is complex, even a simple problem, but makes more relevant to break the complex problems for sure, by all means, into manageable chunks as a work breakdown structure, you will be in a better position to attack and therefore to solve the problem for impactful solution. Think about what I said. Okay, so you have understood now the context, understood now the difficulty level, and therefore you are able to break it into manageable chunks. What is the next logical step? The fourth step that I called out in the framework, and thus therefore the problem solving. For problem solving, it is very critical to understand few things that I'm going to talk about. Please be attentive here. You are being evaluated as part of the evaluation process for multiple things, and the most critical of it is the problem solving ability. So the interviewer is critically evaluating you to look at the problem solving mindset. One more time, when I'm talking about problem solving, I'm not talking about the definitive solution, but the problem solving mindset. But what is important to take note even more here is this. Don't try to explain the theory of data science to the interviewer, but that's not the motivation to ask that question in the interview. The motivation of the interviewer to see your problem solving abilities is to bring to bear the applied knowledge or the practitioner perspective of your ability to apply in certain settings before, and therefore talking to the interviewer or walking the interviewer through in terms of the applied knowledge to bring to bear your application level of understanding of the techniques to solve the business problem. Okay, the potential solution that you are going to talk should be a function of your applied knowledge, given that prior experience that you claim you have been performing at a certain level. Okay, very, very important. If you do that, make no mistake, you are going to create a lasting impact on the interviewer for sure. If you don't believe me, you can prove me wrong if this doesn't work for you. I want to hear in the comments what I was saying if you want to negate and say it's not going to work. So moving on to the last and by far most important aspect, communication. Remember, I told you not to go with the big bang approach, and therefore basis the difficulty level, break down the bigger problem or the hard problems or the complex problems into manageable chunks. So before you even think of uttering a word for communication, now is the time to stitch back those chunks. Yeah, so you've just broken down the complex problem into multiple manageable chunks. Come up with certain possible solutions for each one of those. Tie those chunks back or stitch those chunks back together and create a coherent, compelling, persuasive narrative. Yes, keep in mind at all times we're communicating the evaluation process also. Why I'm harping on this evaluation process? Let's just understand. If I'm sitting in the interview and talking to you for a possible evaluation as a candidate, then I have a particular job profile in mind in my organization that has certain roles and responsibilities that I'm mindful of. So while answering, I am naturally mapping this to that roles and responsibility to see you're delivering on that expectations and that evaluation mechanism. So therefore, when you're able to stitch those chunks and create a compelling story, align by all means to the project objectives, keeping in mind also the objectives of evaluation in the interview, you are going to make not just a lasting impact, and you have given yourself a great chance of landing your dream role. Hope all this makes sense to you. Having said that, I'm also mindful, some of you may be thinking, this is good to know, but little hard to follow. And I completely empathize with you, friends. Make no mistake about it. Practice is the key. Should I say deliberate practice? Don't fall short of deliberately practicing this. How do you do this? You may wonder. So here are some thoughts around it. Do mock interviews, employing this framework. Minimize the gaps. Assess objectively where you are going wrong, where you need improvement, where is there a scope for improvement, what your strengths are. Assess critically. Don't be overcritical, but be more objective is what my recommendation is. But minimize the gaps and deliberate practice. Don't look for perfection, because there is no right size fit for anything in life. So look for something that will be reasonably acceptable to you and therefore gives you enough confidence to face any data science interview and come out with flying colors. I'm very sure if you employ this framework, because this is tried and tested, you will come out with flying colors. And I want to know, after employing this, how your interviews go, and then drop a comment. On a similar note, like, share, subscribe to my channel if not already, and of course hit the bell icon, my friends, for the notification. Yeah, with that I conclude by saying thank you. Congratulations if you have made this far in the journey with me. Looking forward to talking to you in the next video, and therefore wish you well forever. jobs and your interviews. I want to hear from each one of you about the outcomes of your interviews post-employment of this framework. So thank you. Take care. This is Manjunath signing off. Bye-bye.